My name is Maniza Naqvi, and this is the 11th episode of the Little Book Company podcast. Today, I am in conversation with Safinah Danish Elahi. Safinah is a lawyer, poet, writer, and publisher. Her latest novel has a wonderful name, The Idle Stance of the Tippler Pigeon. Her previous two novels are Eye on the Prize, and again, a wonderful title, The Unbridled Romance of Love and Pain. She is the founder of a publishing house called Reverie Publishers. Welcome, Safinah.
Thank you so much, Maniza, for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So where do we begin?
Lots to talk about today.
Yes, a lot to talk about. First, let's begin with your latest novel, The Idle Stance of the Tippler Pigeon.
Yes, sure.
What brought you to this title?
I think the idle stance of the Tippler pigeon sounds like a very exotic name, but in Karachi you see lots of these Tippler pigeons lined up on electric wires. And I think it was more an image for me than the words. The image came first, and the words came later. And it basically within the novel it gives the significance of looking at things, twice, giving things another chance, because the Tippler pigeon seems very lazy, just sitting idle on the wires, but they're actually race birds, and they fly in competitions, and they have excellent endurance. They can fly up to 24 hours. So the idea was that, just observe things. The father says to his son and his daughter that give things another chance, look, observe, and see the meaning behind things rather than just superficially looking at things.
Mm-hmm. And pigeons have always, traditionally, historically, been used for communication.
Yes, yes.
And where there is a city, there will be pigeons.
Yes, of course.
And they will find me and poop on me.
Always.
Always. It's supposed to be good luck. And tell me about, do you want to talk a little bit more about this particular novel?
Yes, of course. So this novel has been published by Neem Tree Press in the UK, and in Pakistan, it's been done by Liberty Publishing. This novel is a story about Nadia primarily and a pair of siblings, Zuhaib and Misha, and their house help's daughter is basically called Nadia. So they grow up together, they love, fight, argue. And the story is written in two timelines. So there's a time hop. You see these children at 8, 9 years old, and then you see them in adult life. It's a story of basically how two very distinct classes exist in Pakistan. So Nadia, being the maid's daughter, is educated by Faiza Hashim, who is Misha and Zuhaib's mother. She does it as a charitable project, even though obviously education changes her life and propels her from, the lower to a middle class. She works in an office. So you see Nadia taking agency in her life. But also I wanted to talk about, children who grow up in a house or in a class that they don't initially belong in. So even though the children can't tell the difference, the mother, there's slight instances where she's not invited to sit at the same table, or she's not going to the same holidays, or she doesn't go to the same school as the children. So I tried to talk about class structures in Pakistan. I tried to show how a tragic incident can affect people's lives in various ways. The children take it in a particular manner, the adults react to it, and Nadia reacts to it in a different manner. So I try to deal with, some people say that I've been too ambitious with how the novel is written. But I hope that the novel is asking all the right questions, because that's what fiction does for us, right? It teaches us empathy. It asks us all the right questions, and then it's up to the reader to answer them in a way that they deem fit.
A while back, even though this is not supposed to be about me, I can't but help but think of a short story, maybe one-page story I wrote a while back called The Servant. And it is mainly about how you have people, again, talking about class in Pakistan, and
Yeah.
unawareness people have, self-awareness with the class
Yes.
in their own homes with
And
servants.
it's also, Maniza, I feel like, we're taught in a certain manner, right? Like when I was I was a little girl, we knew that there was this stark difference between, people who worked for us and who we were. And as much as we try, and even, obviously we have domestic staff here in Pakistan, which is not that, it's not prevalent in other countries of the world. Mostly, I think South Asian countries or even Asian cultures have such dynamics. But I just feel like, the people who hire domestic staff, particularly, it almost seems like giving them a day off is, again, charitable. It's, you're so gracious if you give them a day off or you give them good food. It's really not being gracious. It's basic, it's a basic human right and requirement that everybody's treated nicely, even if they're working in your house. So I always found this, very tragic when I've gone to homes where people are, not treated the right in the right manner. So this always sort of stuck with me, and I tried to do justice because my character is, Nadia is a fiercely, she's a fierce girl. She's grows up to be an independent person. But as a child, I wanted to show where she comes from. She escapes in a household where her father is, there's domestic abuse. So just looking into her sort of subconscious, what her preconceived socialization has been like. So coming from there and then entering a family which is all riches and all luxurious living, it does kind of mess with her mind, with her lifestyle as well. But at the end of the day, we also see that, what does education do to a person? How does it improve a person's life? How does it improve a person's ideas? How does she then raise her child? Or how will she raise her child? So there's a lot to talk about there. And like you mentioned, you wrote a short story on it. I think one can go on about it. I think that we can write several novels on it, because it's still largely, I think, untouched upon in Pakistani literature.
Yes, I think so too. There is a social apartheid that we practice uh, in at so many levels in Pakistani society that at least in the English novel has gone um, mainly mainly ignored.
Yes, I completely agree.
And what about your other two novels, Eye on the Prize? What is that about?
So Eye on the Prize, I wrote at a point where I was sitting at my daughter's sports day, and I was just looking around because even though I play quite a bit of sports, my husband is sporty, we never put that kind of pressure on our children to to win a race, or to kind of like just cheering on, or just kind of being excited is one thing. But I noticed this underlying tension within the parent body, where I thought it was almost unhealthy that the children were competing for a simple like third grade, fourth grade race, and the parents were really worked up. So I started to think about these characters in which these three, four children go to the same private school, and their parents are part of the same sort of social circle. And Eye on the Prize, I want the title actually, I gave it this title because I wanted to show that everybody's prize is different. So these three mothers are very different from each other. They're mostly career women, but one is, looking to propel her class. One is looking to get the best of her, home environment. She's got her past demons. Another one is a very successful woman whose husband works for her. So everyone has a different prize to keep an eye on. But then I revolve it around a sports day. So they're putting pressure on their children to reach a certain goal, I'd say. But that parenting style can be called helicopter parenting because the children not necessarily care about, competition that much. Like, yes, sure, they'd like a medal, but they don't really care for the training that goes into it, or how concerned the parents are at that point. So I found this to be a very Karachi story. When you look at private schools here, and there's not only one, there's quite a few schools in which the parent body is very active, and they put all kinds of pressure on their children. So then, I made it into this dramatic story about the parents being, involved in each other's lives in a certain way. And I obviously I can't spoil it too much, but it's a contemporary fiction, fast-paced novel. So that's what the first one was about. This was a novel, and The Unbridled Romance of Love and Pain is actually a poetry book.
We have to say that a little more slowly because the name is so beautiful. The Unbridled of Love and Pain. So, yes, tell me about that.
So The Unbridled Romance of Love and Pain is a collection of poetry that I wrote over, I think, a decade. I feel like poetry came to me in a manner where I didn't even know it was poetry. I was just jotting out lines, stanzas in a notebook. Whenever and wherever I felt, I wrote down something. And then, at one point I thought that why don't I submit this as a collection of poetry? And it's very simple language, some of the poems even resemble a haiku poem, or it doesn't necessarily follow a certain format, but somehow, alhamdulillah, it's been taken really well because of its simplicity. And the title itself is because I've always believed that those whom you love the most are the ones who cause most pain in your life. So love and pain sort of, go together.
Well, they have the power to cause you pain.
Yes.
And this is a critically acclaimed collection of poetry.
Yes.
And then you are the founder of a publishing house called Reverie Publishers. So you've got a lot on your plate.
I've got a few things, but the best part is that when you love doing what you're doing, and I'm very sure you can relate to it. It doesn't feel like work.
Yeah. What does it feel like?
It feels like one big party.
You want to elaborate on that a little?
Yeah. So I think writing for me has always been very therapeutic. I think all writers, they don't really know if they're going to end up publishing, and if their work will be taken in a manner that they're asked or invited to, or even accepted to publish again. So I think writing for me happened not a very long time ago, maybe 6-7 years ago. I'd been writing and reading, obviously, pretty much all my life, since school years, but I never really knew what writing or being a writer meant. With the poetry, with the first novel, I was still sort of confused and I didn't know how it was done, because that in Pakistan we don't have the kind of resources in which we don't have creative writing degrees, we don't have publishing degrees, we don't have agents here, we have very few publishers. I run one, you run one, and I think there are like maybe 3-4 that even think about fiction. A lot of our publishers do only textbooks or confirmed orders, as I call it. So, you know, in that environment, coming up with a writing career is a risk. But again, like I said, because you enjoy it so much, you somehow gather the energy also of you know, of people who are who have similar thinking, who you align with. I've met so many fantastic people in this, you know, community because of writing. So when I meet them, technically, that's what a work meeting would look like, right? But it you know, the conversation takes off in such a manner that it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like you're meeting friends, you know, or you're meeting people with common interests. But yes, I think with Reverie, the business side of it takes a bit of, you know, it takes a bit of energy out of me, because then it's, you know, the how many copies you're selling, how you're marketing. The writer bit of me still, you know, loves what she does. The publishing bit, when I'm acquiring books, that's the most fun part. The cover design is the most fun part. The not so fun part is when, you know, the turnover that takes a while. That takes, you know, a year, 2 years, and even sometimes 3 years to sell 500 to 1,000 copies. So, you know, that bit, the business bit is a little bit risky, but other than that, you know, I find what I do absolutely delicious.
That's a good way of putting it. It's absolutely delicious. And for me, it's such a joy uh, to have this kind of pool to swim in and
Of course.
be surrounded by people. I won't say they're like-minded because their narratives are so different.
Hmm.
And I'm learning something that that does not come easily to me, which is allow other narratives.
No, of course. When I say like-minded, I don't mean agreeable. You know, what I mean is that you have the similar set of ideas, but the ideas may be something that you're learning from, or you're, you know, having a conversation about. Even at the festivals, you know, I think I've met you and several other writers, and you learn so much. I mean, in one of the festivals, I remember Shehan was here, the Sri Lankan, you know, Booker Prize winner. And talking to him and Damon Galgut, you know, it was just such a beautiful learning experience, because they have such insight into, you know, into things that I know nothing about. Um, so yes, I completely agree on what you're saying, that, you know, it's a learning experience more than just like-mindedness. But, you know, like with, I feel like with family, there's a certain level of sameness when you have conversations. And that's not the kind of like-mindedness that I want to talk about. I think this is a very different kind of respectful sharing of ideas that I find at literary community places.
Yes, you mentioned Shihan Karnatalika, and I must say that you know, being in the company of Shihan and then Damon Galgate and Sinan Antoon, I found them to be the kind of writers that were so gentle in their way of listening and responding and reflecting. I found them so willing to absorb and give of themselves. And I felt very, very fortunate to have been in their company.
Oh, same here. I mean, for me, it was a dream come true, to be very honest. I mean, one only imagines, you know, how stars when you meet. I mean, I've been starstruck, I feel. Because obviously, you know, writers are not as well known as, for example, movie stars or singers. But for me, I think having one conversation with Shehan or Damon, or, you know, such excellent writers. I met Mohsin Hamid recently, and I had, you know, a cup of coffee with him. Just talking and having a normal, you know, conversation is a learning experience. And I feel like with Shehan and Damon, spent a significant amount of time because they were in Karachi and Lahore. And Damon was around for another week, so we had, I had the opportunity to spend a day with him. But they're just, like you said, so gentle, so humble in their ways. And obviously, it goes without saying, so intelligent because their work is just so excellent. I'd read Shehan's work, but Damon's The Promise I read after he'd left. So I got the book signed from him, but I hadn't read it. But I absolutely adored it. I mean, they're both, I think, magicians.
Mhm, mhm. I did too. I thought The Promise was such a quiet and powerful book.
It really was.
So, Safina, you have an MFA in writing and publishing.
Yes.
You want to talk to us a little bit about that? From Emerson College, is it?
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, Maniza. So I have a law background and I'd done writing courses and stuff, but coming into publishing, I thought that, yes, one learns on the job as well, as one goes. But it really helped me, with just sort of having a perspective of global publishing, how that works. And the writing part of the MFA always and always helps because at the time that I was doing the MFA, I was writing my the idle stance of the Tippler Pigeon, and the next one that I've written has also been workshopped within the same degree. So, it really helps. I think the professors have been fantastic. My, course mates have been lovely in giving back feedback. And also because, they come from all over the world as well. So with my writing friends, maybe my perspective or my feedback that they give is going to be limited because it's from a certain region. Um, but it really really helped. I think the MFA was, even though when I hadn't done it, I would every writer I'd meet, I would extend this question to them, that is an MFA even important? Could you just do writing workshops and kind of do your own thing? Because a lot of writers think that it might be a waste. But I think I learned quite a lot from him. I think it was a wonderful experience for me.
Well, tell me what you got out of the workshop. What did you learn?
So I learned a few things. Firstly, like I said, the workshops were excellent. So they're facilitated by the professor, and you submit your work. Your classmates give you feedback. The professor gives you feedback. Then we've got literature courses, which is like any other English degree. You need to take, I think, four literature courses, four writing workshops. Then there are four publishing workshops, and then they go into book design, they go into book cover design, they go into how comps work. So, once you've written a novel, you query an agent or you submit to a publisher, but you don't know who your audience is. So, what is a comp? I didn't know that before I took these courses. So, a comp is a for listeners, it's a book or a novel that is in the same genre as yours and has a similar audience. So sometimes when you think of your story, you think that it's so out of the box that it doesn't fit into any particular genre, or it can't be similar to another novel because you want to be different. But publishers are actually looking to simplify marketing now. So they want to know what your novel is like. They want to know where to fit it in. Even on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles, or whatever platform that you're publishing your book, your publisher is putting the books on. They also show women's fiction, contemporary fiction, thriller, science fiction. So it helps to identify where you sit, where your book sits, and then further identify for readers of, Elif Shafak or Mohsin Hamid or Khalid Hosseini, So it really helps to understand where your book can be placed, what shelf can it be placed on. And other than that, I felt that, a writing community. So the professors are very helpful. I am going to be in the US in May for my hooding ceremony and my US book launch, and they've been fantastic. They did a publishing panel for me. Um, they keep, sending me messages, words of advice, encouragement, congratulations. I think it's really wonderful to have a community of writers as well that is more international, global than just your writing friends. So I think these are the few takeaways from my experience of the MFA that I did.
Hmm.
I hope that answers the question.
I think I just learned a lot. And really, I mean, honestly. And what about and you also attended the Iowa working workshop, right? Writers.
Yes, yes. Yes,
And
so that was funded by the US State Department. They had approached me in 2022 March, and they said, this is a 3 month, 10 weeks or program. It's a residency, so you have to, stay with the other writers. And is this something that you'd be able to do? Because they ask writers beforehand, before nominating them. And I think in the year that I participated, there were 156 applications from Pakistan, and it includes expats as well. And I was fortunate enough to be selected. There were 32 other writers from all over the world who basically stayed at the same place for 10 weeks. We attended translation workshops, we did panels, we also taught a master's class there. So every week would be one class by a couple of writers, and we would present to them. We would talk about literature in our countries, what kind of writing was happening, our own personal style. And then we would obviously attend other people's readings. We had our own. Then other universities invited us. Then we also interacted with the bachelor's and master's students of creative writing at the University of Iowa. And Iowa is famous for its writing workshop as well. And then there was like a cross-cultural situation going on. I made such wonderful, wonderful friendships because this was like college, but you're mature. So I just felt like the experiences and the friendships that I made there were just remarkable. There's a writer, Sherry Jones, whose work has been shortlisted for the Women's Fiction Prize. She was one of my closest friends there. There's Briar Grace Smith, who is a writer, director, producer from New Zealand. And she's also a part of the Academy of Oscars. She was one of my closest friends there. Almadina, she's from Spain. She's the co-writer for the Netflix Money Heist. So, all these accomplished writers. And I felt like I was just there for a ride. It just felt like an amusement park to me. I felt so fortunate to be sitting with these wonderful, wonderful writers who became such good friends, and I'm still in touch with them. So it was just a very, very beautiful experience for me.
and did you find that at the end of this workshop, you had a commonality or with them in terms of your views and voice?
I wouldn't put it as commonality. I think there was commonality of experience because we all experienced, the same things at the same time, in the same space. But our views, like you said, when we were talking about like-mindedness, I think there were a lot of different views. We actually had a Palestinian writer and an Israeli writer on, within those 32 writers that were in residence. So they had conflicting views, and we all also, there was a Bangladeshi writer, and I'm Pakistani. So we had conflicting views at some point, but we all sort of, I think, came together and knew that art sort of, transcends, and it's beyond the differences that we all have. We had a Vietnamese writer, we had a writer from Barbados, from China, from Czech Republic, from Taiwan. So, it was just so multicultural that there was less commonality, but I think respect for each other's work was definitely there. And I learned so much. And I think I was also exposed to world literature, which maybe otherwise I wouldn't have picked up. Some of the writers, were famous in their own regard. They had won their awards, their country awards. But I don't know if I would have read their work otherwise. But I picked up their books, and I made sure that out of 32, at least I read 15 of the novels that were written, because the rest were not really in English. But I think those novels were all fantastic, the ones that I read while being in the residency. And I got lots of time to write. So we would take our laptops to the coffee shop, we would sit in the common room, and we would just quietly write together. And it was just one of our things, that we would grab a cup of coffee, stay at the cafe for hours, because there's no other responsibilities, right? So real life wasn't there. The children weren't around. There was, we were cooking, but we weren't cooking for a big family. All of us were pitching in. We'd rent a kitchen, so the daily, chores weren't happening, and you were kind of away from life, and that gives you a different kind of perspective on writing as well. And I began the novel that I'm writing now. I actually started writing in Iowa.
Wow. And do you have a name, a title for it? Can you share that?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. It's called Chasing Shadows in Borrowed Light.
What, what is beautiful title? I think this comes out of your poetry.
I think I've just got a thing for titles. I don't try to make them complicated. It's just they just suit the story somehow.
Chasing shadows in borrowed light.
Yes.
That's beautiful. Do you want to talk at all about that?
Yes, I can. I can talk a little bit about it. Obviously, I don't want to give it away, because it's not even, it's not even in the running for publication yet. But it's about caretaker fatigue. So, if any of the listeners have read any of my work, my common theme is mental health, and I do talk about, somehow within the fiction, within the story, I do put in a little bit of mental health, because again, I feel like globally people are talking about it. It's not, taboo anymore. But in Pakistan, it's still, if you tell someone that you have a therapist, they're, just gonna think in their head, okay, there's something wrong with you. But I want to, at least with my stories, normalize therapy, normalize having struggles with mental health, normalize, it being, how you catch a flu, or if you're not feeling well physically, if you're not feeling well mentally, that also requires, maintenance. So I think that's a common theme, and this particular story is about someone struggling from poor mental health, and people around that person. There's a certain level of caretaker fatigue, which, the person's listening to your stories, or is the person's trying to be there for you. But can we really in adult life truly be there for a friend or a sister or a relative? Or, there are professionals who can help out? Or is there, kinship, community? How does it work? So the story, sort of, it's a fiction story about these themes.
So let's just take a pause here, Safina, if that's all right with you, and we'll come right
Yeah,
back.
of course.
So, Safina, as we're talking, I'm looking out of my window, and there's a tree that is about to start blooming. I think it's a cherry tree, and the light has been shifting on it, and has moved from right to left, and most of the tree went from being in the light into the shadows. And I can't help but think of your new title. And how do you think we deal with mental health? What do you think people do to respond to their mental crises in Pakistan?
I think for a few generations, we haven't really, I think the generation before us maybe, hasn't really understood, that a lot of our mental makeup is made of our childhood years. So quite a bit of our personality is made by the time we're 7. Furthermore, till age 12, and then obviously life experiences keep stacking on. I've seen a lot of people react or get triggered by very little things, and you're thinking that, but I didn't say anything, and the person is reacting. So the phrase that it's not you, it's me. It's actually things that we have, the baggage that we've had for so many years, and it's been unpacked. So nobody has really, no professional has spoken to us about it. At most, maybe a sister or a mother or a friend has lent a ear and tried to understand what your problem is. So you see that that friend or mother or sister also has their own baggage, lens, something like what we call a reader bias, their own life experiences. So whatever advice they give you is not necessarily, something that will help you. So I feel like a lot of emotions get confused with almost, unguided advice, not, no advice at all, because it comes out in anger, it comes out in aggression, and we see a lot of that. It comes out in road rage, it comes out in really awkward manners as well, because we don't know where it's coming from, we don't know what emotion is felt where and what is triggering what. um, so this conversation around mental health, I think, is very important. Even though a lot of novels, globally are, like I mentioned before, talking about it already. Loneliness. I think in as AI becomes such a big part of our lives, people have become lonely, and that affects mental health. So the childhood bit, the loneliness bit, and then the trauma. People go through different kinds of trauma in their life. So it could be trauma by a partner, trauma by a parent, trauma by a teacher. How do you unpack that? How do you deal with it? You definitely need a professional. We can self-medicate like we do with Panadol here in Pakistan, but at the end of the day, if you have a fracture, then you need to, you need to go to an orthopedic. You need to go to a professional who knows how to deal with that trauma. So I just feel like, again, fiction starts a lot of conversations. And at least I want my fiction to, yes, be entertaining. Whoever's reading the book should have an excellent time reading it. But at the same time, I want them to also think. I want them to think about their, past. I want them to think about people around them. And I want them to be empathetic. If they see someone struggling, I want them to, maybe suggest that they see a therapist, or maybe it's, maybe again lend an, have a conversation, but not think of it as something that shouldn't be talked about, you know and a lot of things in Pakistan, whether social or religious, I feel like you put a cap on it, you just put a lid on it, and those conversations are never meant to be had. They even if it's with your elders, if it's with, your regime, whatever it is, it's just that don't talk. Freedom of expression is not um, very celebrated. So I think conversations like these are very important, and conversations about mental health. So I try to put in a little bit of, I pepper it, I pepper my stories with mental health concerns.
I do feel that um, uh, our society is a deeply traumatized society, and it's also a shame-based society. And for myself, my novels have always had that theme running through them.
Hmm.
The trauma that comes from so much political upheaval, social upheaval, and the shame of very, very oppressive uh, social structures, which begin with the family,
Yeah, yeah.
the one unit of the family, and speaking up has huge costs involved.
Yes, for sure. I mean, um, and especially I feel for women, I wouldn't say that men have all the liberty either, because it's those power structures that, sort of dampen and silence any conversation, but more so for women, because I feel like, the set structures are such that stories, I mean, haven't been appreciated in the past so much. There's a certain concept of being a good woman in Pakistan or in South Asian cultures, and that does not involve speaking your mind. That involves being docile and being, compromising and sacrificing, and that's what makes a good woman. Which I've actually went on national television and said that please stop celebrating sacrifice, with the dramas and with the crying, girl or the crying bahu. We need to stop that, because it's very unhealthy. These conversations need to change, and a sacrificial woman is not to be a good woman. Why should one be sacrificing everything to fit a certain box that these social structures have been creating for the past few decades? So yes, I feel that that needs to come out first.
Are you speaking about um, one class of people um, from your own class, or are you speaking for the whole? Um, I mean, is that your comment for all social?
So it's my comment for see, the comment can be taken very differently for different classes, as you may know, that, a lot of lower class women are actually the ones who are standing up for themselves now, and they're the ones earning. But at the same time, do they have the liberty, as we see in Aurat March as well? Do they really have the liberty and freedom to speak out? Like I say, speak out, maybe today I seem to be from a certain class, and it seems like it's easy for me to say things. But you know yes, class matters and it changes things, but I feel like it's a general conversation as well. People from the upper class, upper middle class, middle lower class, all spaces do still dampen female voices. I feel like yes, maybe we have the liberty a little bit more to speak up because we have education and we have platforms and we can protect ourselves financially. But at the same time, can we really, a lot of times you have family structures which are not going to appreciate you speaking out too much. Um, but violence wise, I think the lower classes and the middle classes have so much more to suffer, because they don't have access to information, they don't have access to helplines, they don't have access to community slash lawyers slash awareness. So no, the comment cannot be for all classes, but there is a general, I'd say, silencing of women that will run through as a thread between the classes as well.
I'll have to think about that a lot more. Um, I, I I hear you, but I think I need to think about that a little bit more, um, or a lot more. I think that there is that women, the only permission they have to really express their anger or rage or what they really think, maybe not just for women, men as well, is to show that they're mad, that they're insane, or they're possessed.
Hmm. No, of course, like I said, the unpacking of all that trauma, that has never happened, right? And especially like someone who works for me does not have access to a therapist. So what do you do there? I'm having these conversations that, oh, you seek advice from a therapist, but we're talking about really, basic human needs here. So what happens there? What happens to them? Um,
Lead to
and
religiosity, an overemphasis on religiosity.
yeah, yeah. And that, see, so religion also is a tool that you know I don't know where to take this conversation because I can go on.
Let me,
Um,
let me categorize it a little bit. There is
yeah.
religion, and I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about religiosity.
No, no, of course, I know what you're saying, and I just feel like, I'm just saying that in terms of censorship, like how much can I say? But it's definitely taken, religion has always been in Pakistan, especially, and we see this in history. We've seen this in many regimes that we've had in Pakistan, that it's been taken as a tool of oppression, it's been taken as a tool of convenience. It has been it's been wrongly put in legislation. So that's a completely different conversation, and I have a lot to say about it. It's one of the books that I've published as well, that puts me in all the wrong you know books of censorship.
Yeah.
um,
Name the book.
the Verdict.
Verdict. Can you want to speak to that a little bit?
I mean, I'd rather not, but you can search for the book, and the book is available.
Um, when I meant that by religiosity, that because people don't have other tools available to them to look at what they're going through in a more rational manner, they lean upon something else, that what's happening to them must be something coming from some sort of spirituality or divinity or or more darker forces. Uh, so that's what I meant, that there seems to be an overwhelming amount of that kind of thinking going on in Pakistan. Uh,
Yeah, so this is from a while ago, right? Religion is the opium of the masses, So this is from Karl Marx. It's the most simple thing to lean upon, and we see this in Pakistan because, of course, it's whatever doesn't happen is Allah ki marzi. Obviously, it's Allah ki marzi, but it's also, you have to put in sensible, rational thinking, put in, the amount of hours in it, the hard work in it, and then you have the ability to change the outcome. It's not, Allah ki marzi. It's you have to put in. Allah Mia says, that you have to put in your best. You have to put your best foot forward, and you can change the outcome of things. But yes, I think religion is used as the most simple explanation, like you said, for things. And that's just because rational thinking a lot of times is missing. And I feel like, religion is also used wrongly for punishments. It is used in forms of, patriarchy in a lot of areas of Pakistan. You can see religion discriminating against women, largely because the men are calling the shots. So there's a lot of conversations that one can have on this. It's a really vast subject, I feel.
mhm, mhm. And so many stories to tell.
So many stories, so many, I mean, real life events. I would even say that, uh, like they say, truth is stranger than fiction.
That's right.
There's so much that you see in the news, and you see an uproar, talking about it for a few months, and then it gets forgotten. But then there's, the next one comes up, and it keeps happening, and there's no breaking the cycle. It just keeps happening and keeps happening, and I don't know why, like, we're unable to have accountability.
And maybe the more stories that get told and written and spoken, that may be a form of helping to heal or open windows and doors. Um,
Definitely. I mean, I think social media, the very few benefits I see of social media is to raise awareness, I think before only newspapers would say things. Now a common man can go, on their social media and talk about these things, and it's okay to it, even, even after going through so much literature on cyber crimes and all of that, it's still a good platform to raise awareness. But more so, like you said, writing and fiction and stories, they do help conversations, things that are important to talk about.
um, I talking about fiction, I remember a long time ago hearing, I think it was William Dalrymple, talk about the fact that he saw that in South Asia, people were writing fiction, and there was so much to write in terms of research and nonfiction and looking at history and events and doing some deep thinking and deep research and uh, putting that into perspective, and people were not doing that. That they were writing fiction. Why do you think that is?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Why do you think people choose to write fiction rather than nonfiction? Um,
Well, I feel like fiction gives us more leeway. It makes easier, at least I can speak for myself, it makes easier for me to approach a topic. um and I feel like fiction can also be more palatable. You can create a universe, you can create a world, and you can focus on the things that you want to talk about that are not necessary. Nobody can raise a finger and say that, you've spoken about this wrongly. This is your story, this is your canvas. You can create things and you can have the same conversations. Um, but it gives you that, you're a step away from truth. Um, so I feel like you can do a lot more with fiction. You can talk about the same things that are happening, but it just gives you a bigger canvas.
yeah. So, Safina, tell me about the fiction that you're publishing at Reverie Publishers.
I've been doing some really interesting work. I mean, by that I mean that so many lovely stories and fantastic novels have been coming my way. We've recently done two anthologies. The Rashid Harun Prize for Women.
Mhm.
We collected stories from the past 5 years, nonfiction and fiction, put them together in a collection. Then we did the Salam anthology. It's called Beyond. Um, Both of them are out for sale now. Both have excellent stories coming out from Pakistan. I am currently also working with a writer from Islamabad. It's a story about a woman who's lived in Pakistan and Iran, and she combines like her experience with the two countries' food. The types of food that she makes there. I'm also working on a novel with an expat who lives in the Netherlands. So there's a lot of exciting stuff coming up, and I just wish I could publish more, because such remarkable stories come, and I'm sure they come to you as well. And I just wish that I could do more, but it's at that, at this time, this is what's happening, but it's still terribly exciting.
It is terribly exciting. And can you name a few of your titles that have been published by you in the past?
So the few that we've just done are Mightier, the Zenith Harun anthology, Beyond, the Salam anthology. Apocalypse Babies is a memoir by Safinah Elahi. She is a writer and educator from Pakistan, based in Boston. And we've and three are in the process right now. So
Mhm.
these are in the past, like 2024, we've done these books.
Wonderful. And I wanted to ask you earlier when it came up, but let me ask you now, what sports do you play? You mentioned
So I play a lot of sports, and like my daughter says that, she's like, all your aggression comes out in sports, because I'm generally, I seem to be a very calm person, but in sports I get very, very competitive as well. So I play football, which is American soccer. I play tennis, and I play paddle tennis, table tennis, and I run also. So I'm a runner. I just recently did a half marathon as well. And yeah, that's the few sports that I do play.
And where do you play soccer?
There's this new multi-sport place called Legends in Karachi. I actually played soccer in the US as well while I was in Iowa. And I think that, I thought that I didn't play well. So some of the MFA students there were playing, and they invited me. And I played once, and they said, come again. And I thought they were just being nice. But then I ran into them somewhere, and they're like, why didn't you come? And I was like, oh, I didn't know it was a genuine invitation. So then I continued playing, twice a week there in the US as well. And I got back here, and I found some, other amateur football players. So I play with them now.
Fabulous. And the half marathon, where did you run that?
I ran that in Defense at Zamzama. Usually I do my races like 10 kilometers or 15 kilometers. There's usually races going around here. So there's the SOP marathon, the Karachi marathon. I usually participate. There's a running community that my husband is a part of. So I usually just go with them, do like a 10, 15K, but the K being kilometer. The half marathon was one that I did alone. It was just one of those bucket list things that I did a few months ago.
Fabulous. Good for you.
Thank you.
What did you learn from running a half a marathon?
Just, I think, persistence. I mean, with any sport, I feel, and more so with running, a lot of times your body gives up, and you know that, there's nothing left in you, but it's just your mental strength. You need to keep going, keep telling yourself that you see the end. And it's actually a lot like writing as well. Sometimes when you're a little bit stuck in your own mind and you can't get to the end that you have envisioned, you need to just have the mental strength to believe that you will reach it. And I'm in my head a lot. In my head, I have so many conversations that are unnecessary and even destructive sometimes. But I think at the end of the day, if you're persistent in your thought process and you know that perseverance will get you towards the end goal, that is something that one can value.
Well, Safinah Danish Elahi, thank you very much.
Thank you, Maniza. This has been such a wonderful conversation. I had such a good time.
I had a great time listening to you. Thank you.
Thank you.